in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. I was merely the fake daughter of Xianxia Manor, living an idle life for over a decade. The day the true, rightful daughter was welcomed back, the entire estate rejoiced as if they had found pure gold. Drums and gongs echoed through the sky, and the Marquise and Marchioness beamed with such radiance that they seemed to regret not hanging red lanterns from the city gates all the way to her chamber door. However, the very moment Winnie Zhang stepped off the carriage, she presented the public with a grand meeting gift, a face plant in the literal sense. With a loud thud, dust billowed into the air. I stood nearby, my heart tightening as I thought, it is over, the Marquise will surely despise this clumsy daughter now. Unexpectedly, upon seeing that scene, the Marquise and his wife held each other and wept, tears streaming down their faces as they rushed forward, shouting in extreme excitement. Heavens, she is truly our flesh and blood. Looking at this clumsy appearance, I recognize her immediately, there can be no mistake. That is right, that is right. Just look at this classic fall. It is exactly like her father when he first went to propose marriage years ago. It is truly a profound bloodline connection, accurate down to the last inch. I stood in the background, hands clasped and hidden within my wide sleeves, my facial muscles twitching to the point of speechlessness. The return of Winnie was like throwing a boulder into a calm lake, causing waves to ripple through the entire Xianxia Manor. In her elegant, newly swept courtyard, people bustled in and out like they were attending a festival. Even the yellow dog from the third branch, who usually only knew how to gnaw on bones, hurriedly ran over to join the fun, barking to welcome the returned daughter. I was a sensible person, so I did not foolishly appear at this time to become a thorn in everyone's eyes. I withdrew to the pavilion, leisurely waiting for night to fall. When the noisy crowd had dispersed, I gently lifted my teacup to inquire about the situation. The people in the third sister's courtyard today looked unfamiliar. Who sent them? The young steward standing before me, back hunched like a boiled shrimp, respectfully replied. Second miss, it was the old madam who arranged it. My hand pouring tea paused slightly, and my willow leaf eyebrows raised in a meaningful beat. The old butler standing next to him saw this, and hurriedly nudged his grandson's shoulder, quickly correcting the statement. Second miss, please judge, this old servant has investigated clearly. Although those people bear the name of old madame, they are actually pawns that the second aunt planted long ago. It seems that to get people into the third Mrs. courtyard, the second branch has spent quite a bit of effort and acted out a very long play. I placed the teacup down with satisfaction, my voice clear but carrying an invisible pressure. Make it clear to our people that they should use their heads when working. Do not make the master hold their hands to teach them. Third sister has just returned and is still unfamiliar with the place. If I hear anyone daring to rely on their status to bully her. The old butler and the young steward shuddered in unison. Second miss, rest assured, this old servant will personally keep watch, absolutely not letting the third miss lose a single hair. 3 days later, Winnie and I finally had our first top-level reunion. To be honest, seeing her, I could not help but sigh at the wonder of creation. She inherited all the best essence of our parents in terms of appearance. Her whole body was round, her skin white and tender like a floating rice ball, just scooped out of the pot. Her face was like a chubby dumpling, her round eyes looked at the world with bewilderment, and even her lips were pouty, as if inviting someone to come and pinch them. Looking at Winnie trying to steal herself in front of me, I only felt a sense of amusement and absurdity. It was like a child trying to wear an adult's court dress, so clumsy that it made one want to cover their face. With that appearance, did she want to play the role of a villain or an arrogant, rude girl? I fear that as soon as she lifted her chin, she looked like a small kitten trying to bare its fangs and brandish its claws. She put her hands on her hips, trying to squeeze out the fiercest expression possible. You are Eleanor Zhang, that wild girl my parents picked up from a trash heap on the street, are you not? I did not rush to answer, lazily putting down the book in my hand, using a gaze as if looking at a strange object on the street, to assess her from head to toe a few times. Seeing my silence, Winnie thought I was afraid, and her momentum rose even higher. I tell you, it is useless for you to pretend to be deaf and mute. I am the true destined daughter of the Zhang family. She spoke while pointing a finger at my face, her voice chirping like a sparrow. You are the type of cuckoo occupying the magpie's nest. If you are smart, Then hurry up and get out. Tomorrow I will report to our parents to send you to the temple to knock on the wooden fish and chant sutras for purity. You have enjoyed all my blessings for so long, now give them back. Looking at Winnie dancing around, I only felt a deep sense of helplessness rising in my heart. If one wants to borrow the tiger's power, one must at least have the demeanor of a fox. Yet, she was clearly a round white rabbit. Where did she get the gall of a tiger to run in front of me and growl like this? Just a moment later, that maid led a few strong servants, escorting a little maid and an old woman, throwing them into the courtyard. My voice at this moment was as cold as thin ice. Who was so bold and daring to incite the third miss to cause animosity with me, and even had the audacity to force me into the temple to practice asceticism? The face of the old woman kneeling on the ground immediately turned from red to white, then from white to pale green like a banana leaf. I curled my lips slightly, revealing a cold smile. Looking at the old woman trembling in the courtyard, not bothering to spend effort questioning her and wasting saliva. Jag her mouth for me, beat her right here and now. Unless I speak, absolutely do not stop your hands. The sound of wooden sticks hitting flesh rang out dryly, mixed with the stifled groans in the throat of the traitorous old servant. Winnie's expression transformed in the blink of an eye from majestic arrogance to extreme terror. Her eyes widened and her chubby lips trembled. Do you intend to rebel? Stuttering for half a day without uttering a sentence, Winnie immediately scrambled to turn around, intending to run away from this hell on earth. Stand still. I only gently uttered 2 words. The sound was not loud but carried the authority of someone who had held the power of life and death for many years. Winnie seemed to have her acupoints pressed, standing rooted to the spot, not daring to move even a single hair. Amidst the quiet courtyard, I calmly sat sipping tea, forcing the true daughter to enjoy the full punishment with me. With every sound of the stick landing, Winnie jumped, her face pale without a single drop of blood. The old woman was beaten until her legs were shattered, lying paralyzed like a pile of mud, and was then dragged by the estate guards to a farm outside the city in the dark night. As for our Winnie, she watched the trail of blood on the brick floor, her eyes glazed over, and then with a thud, she fainted right on the spot. I looked at the little dumpling lying sprawled on the ground and sighed softly. Being this weak and yet wanting to learn from others to fight for power and profit, it really makes one concerned for the future of this Xianxia manor. That soul-shaking battle caused Winnie to fall truly ill. She lay bedridden for 7 days and nights like a shrinking turtle. Doctors came and went. Everyone stroked their beards, saying that her health was fine, it was just excessive fright, and heart sickness required heart medicine. However, even though the Marquis and his wife coaxed her until their tongues were worn out, she still insisted on clinging to the bed, regarding it as the final fortress to preserve her little life. Regarding the authority I displayed the other day, the Marquis and his wife naturally understood it to the core. The two of them closed the door and discussed it for several hours. But in the end, no one dared to come find me to demand justice for their precious daughter. It seemed they also fully understood their daughter's foolishness. If she was not honed by me, sooner or later she would invite disaster upon herself. One must untie the bell if one tied it. I could not let this little ancestor remain fossilized in her cocoon forever. I put on my most magnificent clothes, applied exquisite makeup, and with an imposing aura, stood tall in front of her bed, my voice indifferent. Hurry up and sit up, I am in a good mood today. I have free time to take you out to the streets to play and gaze upon the prosperity of the capital for a bit. Winnie, who was burying her head deep in the layers of brocade quilts like a silkworm cocoon, jumped when she heard my voice, sticking out her messy head and round eyes, full of wariness to look. What trick are you planning again? Are you planning to take this opportunity to trick me out of the manor and sell me off? Hearing this, I did not know whether to laugh or cry, feeling that the future of this Xianxia manor was as dim as the fog on the 30th night. What nonsense are you thinking? With this brain of yours, who in the world would dare spend money to buy you? If I sold you, I fear people would return you. I would have to spend extra money on the transport carriage. Wouldn't that be a huge loss? Winnie, hearing me insult her intelligence, was so angry that her dumpling cheeks puffed up, looking even more like a floating rice ball about to explode. Seeing her fear of being sold, I raised my eyebrows slightly and played my final trump card. A magnificent restaurant has just opened in the southern part of the capital, heard to be guarded by 4 famous chefs. Each of them holds a cooking secret that makes even the royal relatives drool. I had to spend a lot of effort to book a heaven-grade room a month in advance. I glanced at the shaking quilt cocoon and added a fatal blow. If you are not in the mood, then I have no choice but to invite the cousin from the third uncle's house to go along. It is a pity for those delicacies from the mountains and seas. Winnie's eyes darted around like a rolling marble. That brain, which originally did not hold much knowledge, must be working at full capacity to struggle with the thought. I did not bother coaxing anymore. Seeing her still silent, I decisively turned around, my silk skirt gliding away heartlessly. Sure enough, before I could reach the door, a small, white, round hand like a bamboo shoot poked out of the quilt and grabbed tightly onto my sleeve. I will go, it is not yet time for the meal anyway. I decisively dragged this dumpling out to inspect the streets and understand the ways of the world. To be honest, this Winnie also belonged to the type with great blessings. Years ago, although she had the bad luck of being lost from the noble manor, she was picked up by a wealthy merchant in Jiangnan and raised like a pearl in the palm. If Xianxia Manor did not have the aristocratic label and some status in the officialdom, I fear that the merchant family would not have agreed to return this treasure. Perhaps because she grew up in a honey pot of money, her temperament was somewhat inversely proportional to her age. While walking, she suddenly stopped abruptly in front of a jewelry shop, her round eyes lighting up as if seeing stars in the sky. Oh my, why is this necklace so sparkling and beautiful? As soon as she uttered those words, I saw the jewelry shop owner smile, preparing to slaughter a fat sheep, while I sighed softly, my hand unconsciously touching the money pouch at my waist. Winnie reluctantly held the necklace in her hand, her round eyes sparkling as if containing the entire galaxy. Mumbling without any restraint, my mother, my foster mother in Jiangnan, also once found a craftsman to make a similar one for me, but in terms of exquisiteness, it truly could not compare to even a corner of this one. True to being goods from the capital, just looking at it, one can see the strong scent of money. I raised my eyebrows, looking at her expression of craving to the point of losing all dignity, and without hesitation, directly snatched the treasure from her hand and gave it to the shopkeeper. Wrap it up, send it straight to Chun Manor in a bit. Conveniently tell the goldsmith to bring a few more newly arrived unique jewelry sets for the third miss to choose from. Just choose the most expensive ones. Hearing the title of the manor and seeing my money-spending aura, the shopkeeper beamed as if he had caught pure gold, hurriedly bowing and agreeing before disappearing behind the curtain as fast as the wind. Taking advantage of the moment when there were no eyes and ears around, Winnie hurriedly leaned close to me, lowering her voice to blame me with a look of extreme pain, as if someone were cutting her flesh. You, this prodigal child, why did you not bother to bargain even a single sentence? Business in the capital is full of bait and switch tactics. Do you just nod your head like that? I could not help but laugh out loud. So the third sister of the aristocratic family also knows the way of bargaining of merchants. Winnie immediately glared, her dumpling cheeks puffing up with a look of worldly experience. Of course, it is not your money, so you do not feel the pain. You take my parents' money to spend lavishly and then plan to use it to curry favor with me, right? Humph, I see through you. Do not think these few pieces of jewelry can bribe the title of the true daughter of mine. She put her hands on her hips, assuming the posture of someone who saw through the mortal world, preparing to preach a long sermon. I just leisurely adjusted the folds on my sleeves, dropping a casual sentence that made her stand dead in her tracks. This shop is mine. The money to buy this item also comes from my private vault, having nothing to do with a single penny of the manor. Do you still want a bargain? Do not think about that. What did you just say? Winnie rolled her eyes back, her small mouth gaping open wide enough to fit a chicken egg. She stuttered, pointing wildly around the shop. This is your shop. This huge shop, right in the middle of the capital's big street, belongs to you alone. I really could not hold it in any more, so I reached out to cover that face which was revealing looks of stupidity to the extreme. Just at that moment, the shopkeeper brought a tray of top-notch jewelry forward, unintentionally saving her from a visible loss, preventing her from uttering any more foolish words. I waved my hand to signal the shopkeeper to retreat, looking straight into those craving eyes, asking decisively, "Correct, mine. I alone am the owner. Now you only need to say one sentence. Do you want it or not?" A look of grievance flashed across Winnie's face as she realized she was poorer than the usurper, but her tone was extremely decisive, without a shred of dignity. "I want." Sure enough, there is always one thing to conquer another. I originally intended to borrow the atmosphere of delicious food at the restaurant to discuss life with her, but unexpectedly this girl truly regarded eating and drinking as the supreme truth of life. For over half an hour, I only saw her small head bowed down into the bowl, chopsticks dancing wildly as if helped by a god. She ate to the point of forgetting heaven and earth, not bothering to look up at me even once, as if I were just an illusory shadow beside the banquet table. I sat opposite, witnessing Winnie's belly become rounder and rounder like a big drum, yet the chopsticks in her hand were still dancing wildly, showing no intention of stopping. Seeing her eating appearance as if there would be no grain of rice left tomorrow, I truly could not bear it anymore and waved my hand to give an order. "You there, clear away all these greasy dishes for me. Bring up a pot of hawthorn and rose tea for the third miss to digest. Otherwise, I fear we will have to carry her back to the manor later." Seeing the plate of meat leave her line of sight, Winnie immediately put on a resentful expression, as if I had robbed her of her entire fortune. I sighed, having to lower my voice to explain. "If you like to eat, I will bring you here again next time. What is the reason to eat so much today? Do you intend to risk your life with your stomach?" However, Winnie at this moment suddenly appeared unusually wise. She pointed down below the stairs, where the stream of people was queuing in a long line like a dragon's snake. "Do you not see people out there squeezing until their heads are broken? It is not like one can eat just because one wants to. Plus, I heard you say with my own ears, this heaven-grade room must be booked a full month in advance. What if there is no seat next time we come? Wouldn't I regret it to the point of losing sleep?" I looked at her, speechless for a few seconds. It turned out that this girl's rare intelligence was all focused on calculating when she would get to eat her next meal. I gently took a sip of tea, calmly delivering a fatal blow. "Rest assured, I also have a share of investment in this restaurant. Just by presenting my name card, I guarantee that whenever you come, there will be delicious food served to your mouth. No need to queue until your hair turns gray." Winnie was raising the cup of hawthorn tea to her lips, and upon hearing that sentence, she immediately choked, her round eyes looking at me. I took a sip of tea, my demeanor calm like floating clouds and flowing water, nonchalantly adding another sentence. "It is just that this heaven-grade room is too popular, so I had to book a month in advance to keep some face for the manor, but in reality, this entire restaurant gives me quite a bit of respect." As soon as the words fell, the look in Winnie's eyes looking at me immediately changed. If just now she was looking at an enemy occupying the nest, now she looked at me like looking at a statue of the god of wealth emitting golden light, the joy clearly visible on her dumpling face without bothering to hide it. I helplessly glared at her, then tapped my finger lightly on the wooden table, going straight to the point. "You have been back at the manor for these many days, you have seen the excitement. Tell me, has your brain that only knows how to eat and grow quickly discovered anything unusual yet?" Winnie was stunned, her big round eyes blinking at me with a look of confusion. Discovered that." She scratched her head, her face extremely honest. "Actually, I did not discover anything big, just that there are some people who keep whispering in my ear, saying that you are a person with a fake identity, borrowing my name to stay in this Xianxia manor to act tyrannically. They imitated the tone of the stabbing old women, looking both funny and absurd. They said, I am the true destined daughter, and I only need to find a way to kick you out. Then in the future, from the parents' favor to the glory and wealth in the manor, all will be reserved for me alone." Speaking of which, she held a piece of cake, looking at me innocently as if she had just told a casual story over tea and wine, completely unaware that she had just confessed the entire conspiracy of the person standing behind. I narrowed my eyes, the corners of my lips slightly curling up into a cold curve. Sure enough, although the people in this Xianxia manor are stupid, there is no shortage of flies buzzing around. Hearing Winnie calmly declare, I raised my eyebrows slightly, waiting for the next part of the malicious plot, but unexpectedly she clicked her tongue and added, Then that person who just incited me, before seeing me overthrow you, had her legs broken by your people and was dragged away that night." I was speechless, taking a deep breath to suppress the headache that was throbbing. Indeed, this systematic innocence could not be mistaken for anyone else. I looked at her and nodded with emotion. "You are truly the biological daughter of my parents, not wrong by half a drop of blood." Winnie was very proud to hear that, her small head nodding like a pestle, her face beaming. Needless to say, Our Zhang family genes are inherently excellent like that. I looked at her, my heart filled with despair. The excellence she spoke of, I fear, referred to the stupidity inherited through many generations. I sighed softly, took a sip of tea, and began to turn back the dusty pages of memory. 16 years ago, when the capital was still peaceful, parents took you to the temple to pray for blessings, but unexpectedly a natural disaster struck. The earth shook and the sky trembled. A terrible earthquake separated everything. I paused for a moment, looking into her bewildered eyes. The wet nurse that year risked her life to protect you and was crushed to death by a large rock right on the spot. In the midst of that chaos, you were lost from the Zhang family's grasp. At that time, you were just 1 year old, apart from a tiny peach blossom-shaped birthmark on your shoulder. There were truly no other characteristics for identification. Hearing this, the cake in her hand suddenly paused. Perhaps in that brain which only contained food, there was finally some feeling about her roots. I looked deep into her eyes, which were starting to tear up, my voice lowering like a bell tolling in the silent night. That year, father and mother almost went mad, turning that entire land upside down to ask for your whereabouts. But the sea of people was vast, no different looking for a needle in the bottom of the ocean. It wasn't until a year later that people discovered me lying dying in front of the Xian temple. How coincidental! There was also a faint mark on my shoulder that made people mistake it for the destined flower of the Zhang family. So I was brought back to wear the brocade clothes that originally belonged to you. But fake is forever fake. Over the years, the birthmark on my shoulder just faded away, leaving no trace. Even this appearance, one look shows that parents and I do not share half a point of similarity. However, raising a bird in a cage for a long time breeds affection, let alone a human being of flesh and blood. That year you were unheard of. Mother sorrowed day and night until she withered away. My existence, in the end, was just a sedative, a place for her to entrust a bit of motherly love. You should remember, for all those years, the Zhang family never had a day where the intention to find you ceased. I have stood in this position for so long, not to steal, but to hold the place. You absolutely do not need to compete for favor with anyone, because from the moment you were born, you were already the unique daughter, the priceless pearl in the hearts of parents, never having shifted. Hearing this, the cake in Winnie's hand fell without her noticing, her chubby lips pressed tight, her round eyes which only knew how to look at food suddenly covered with a layer of mist and then gradually turned red. For the first time since returning, this true daughter truly felt the weight of the word family, rather than just the shallow instigations of wicked servants. Seeing her tears beginning to fall like spring rain, and since I was not a gentle girl good at coaxing, I hurriedly cleared my throat, decisively changing to another topic to lessen the sentimentality. This time bringing you back to the Zhang family is not for you to sit in the shade and eat from a golden bowl, acting as a young lady enjoying blessings bestowed upon her head. My Changchun manor has a resounding reputation. Those who come and go are all from famous noble families with high power and position. You are already the legitimate daughter. Naturally, you must learn etiquette and rules. Shouldering the responsibilities of a lady of a noble house, absolutely cannot hide. I looked at her, my voice becoming more steely. The old woman who incited you last time was actually a pawn of the second aunt. She used the grandmother's hand to plant people in your courtyard, but do not think she is stupid enough to believe that with your lack of ability, you can drive me out of the door. She is just throwing stones to test the road, to see if the Zhang family's affection for me fades because of your return. The ultimate goal of the second branch is to find a loophole to seize the housekeeping power, manipulating the treasury of the manor. So you, oh my. Winnie suddenly let out a startled sound, interrupting my lecture. She widened her eyes, looking at me like looking at a strange creature. You are just an adopted daughter, yet the housekeeping power holding the lifeblood of the entire Changchun manor lies in your hands. What kind of demon from which direction did you transform from? I felt helpless. What on earth was this girl's train of thought made of? I had just analyzed the second branch's extremely deep conspiracy to seize power, yet she only paid attention the fact that I was a fake daughter holding housekeeping power. Although throughout the whole session, she and I spoke different languages, like a chicken talking to a duck in the end, it was not a waste of effort. At least after a full meal, the relationship between Winnie and I had visibly softened. She finally realized that having a sister who was a financial tycoon backing her was much better than pushing me out of the manor and then going to peel crabs by herself. However, peace in the Xianxia manor was inherently a luxury. During the official family banquet to welcome the true daughter back, what was bound to come finally arrived. While everyone was raising their glasses to offer congratulations, second aunt suddenly raised her characteristic shrill voice, the sound both piercing and resounding like a gong striking the eardrum. Winnie was concentrating intensely and fighting with a honey-glazed chicken wing. Startled by that shout, she almost dropped the food. I acted as if I did not see it, leisurely raising my teacup to cover my mouth, trying to suppress a smile that was about to burst out at the corner of my lips. Oh my, it is true that heaven has eyes, the ancestors have blessed us, our niece has finally returned whole and intact. Second aunt spoke while dabbing her handkerchief, her eye sockets dry, acting out a scene of deep familial affection. Winnie sat right next to me, her face full of grease, slightly curling her lips and mumbling at a volume only enough for the two of us sisters to hear. What kind of nonsense is she talking about? If I did not return intact, would I have fallen apart piece by piece, dropping legs and arms on the way back here? Why is she speaking so ominously? I almost choked on my tea. Indeed, the strongest enemy is not the one with many schemes, but the one who uses mindless logic to break all the opponent's tricks. I leaned slightly to one side, my shoulders shaking violently because I was trying to hold back laughter at the mumbling of the silly rabbit beside me. It seems that Winnie's straightforwardness like a horse's gut is the nemesis of these dramatic performances. Seeing no one responding, second aunt cleared her throat and began to launch a vicious attack aimed straight at me. Oh my, I see that this drama of the true and fake monkey king of our Jiang family should also come to an end. Nora, it is not that aunt does not love you, but after all, you bear a different surname and are not the bloodline of our Zhang family. For many years, the Zhang family has treated you not poorly, lacking neither delicious food nor beautiful clothes. You should not be greedy and occupy the position that originally belonged to Winnie. Now that the rightful owner has returned grandly, you, a substitute, should also know your place and yield. She narrowed her eel-like eyes, her tone full of acting for the greater good, but in reality, she wanted to push me to my death. I see that the scenery at our Xianxia Manor's ancestral shrine is quiet, very suitable for you to move there to cultivate your character and chant sutras to pray for blessings. After all, in this entire capital, one cannot find a second noble lady bold enough to dare to break the legs of the people sent by the old madame. Faced with those razor-sharp attacks, I still sat calmly like a statue, not bothering to move, nor opening my mouth to say half a word. I remained indifferent as if she were telling a joke about someone in a distant land having nothing to do with me. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly froze. Father was originally a hot-tempered man but always kept etiquette, yet he was the first who could not stand the scrutiny of the second branch. Although hidden in the inner chambers, it is difficult for men to argue with female relatives, but he also gently placed his chopsticks down on the table. A dry clack rang out, enough to make the entire banquet table fall silent. Mother saw father, starting to change his expression, and fearing that the family atmosphere would be damaged, she hurriedly spoke up to mediate. Second sister, your words are too heavy. Whether it is Eleanor or Winnie, they are both daughters that my husband and I have raised with our own hearts. We treat them both as true treasures, loving them equally and fairly. Hearing this, I sighed softly in my heart. This defense from mother truly came from the bottom of her heart, but it was too soft, no different from using cotton to block the muzzle of a gun, completely lacking any suppressive momentum. Sure enough, second aunt treated those words like wind blowing past her ears. She continued to rattle on, arbitrarily outlining the route to send me to the ancestral shrine to knock on the wooden fish, as if it were the right thing to do. Right at this moment, Winnie, after having finished off the plate of food, took a towel to hastily wipe her greasy mouth, then cleared her throat and spoke up. Hey, I find second aunt speaks very strangely. I am the person involved and have not yet demanded to drive second sister away. What are you rushing for? I see she stays at home very well. There is no problem. I am indeed deeply affectionate flesh and blood. Looking at the straightforward appearance of the three people in the first branch combined, I suddenly realized that their combined combat power was not even equal to a corner of second aunt's boneless tongue. Finally, after watching the good show for a while, the old madame, the most authoritative living Buddha in the manor, slowly put down her teacup, her sharp eyes looking straight at me, her voice rising and falling unpredictably. Eleanor, regarding this matter, you are the person involved. What do you think? The entire hall immediately fell silent. Second aunt looked at me smugly, mother squeezed her handkerchief in worry, and Winnie waited innocently to see if I would give second aunt a leg-breaking beating like the old woman the other day. Oh, I raised my eyebrows slightly. The old madam had always been ambiguous, but now she actively threw the ball to me. It seemed she was also tired of the second branch's greed, and no longer intended to cover up for those pests. I calmly stood up, my silk skirt gliding lightly on the brick floor like floating clouds. I leisurely stepped into the middle of the hall, a smile blooming on my lips, but my eyes were cold as knives, glancing slightly at second aunt. Just that one look made second aunt, who was boasting, suddenly feel a cold chill down her spine, goosebumps rising all over her body. Unconsciously stepping back as if meeting a god of death, I respectfully bowed. Grandmother, father, mother, all the elders present here. I, Eleanor, originally do not carry the Zhang family bloodline. This is something the whole world knows clearly. It is not news. I paused for a moment, implying a deep meaning. Now that third sister has survived a great disaster and returned upright and fair, it is originally a sacred happy event for the manor. Why, through second aunt's words, has it turned into a drama of fighting, making me suddenly become a thorn in everyone's eyes? Seeing her face change color, I laughed lightly and continued. However, the words aunt just lectured are not without reason. After all, I am just an adopted daughter, holding the housekeeping power and governing the lifeblood of Xianxia Manor for so long. Indeed, my name is not right and my words are not proper, causing outsiders to gossip. Second aunt was just about to open her mouth to agree when I raised my hand to block her, my aura imposing. Then, while all the elders are fully present, I, Eleanor, ask for permission to publicly summarize all the account books in my hands over the years. Once the books are clear, I will naturally move to the ancestral shrine, absolutely not regretting half an inch. In the future, whether it is mother or any aunt who steps up to shoulder the responsibility of taking over, they will avoid unnecessary trouble. Clear and transparent, both sides are happy. As soon as I finished speaking, the hall of Xianxia Manor suddenly turned into a painting of commoners with all kinds of different expressions. Some eyes shone like hungry tigers seeing prey, others lowered their heads to avoid, hearts full of private calculations. Second aunt at this moment was the most smug. She had already begun to dream of the scene where her left hand held the treasury key, and her right hand flipped through the spending book, freely scraping for herself. The rest of the clan only hated not having a plate of melon seeds to crack while watching this dramatic drama of the adopted daughter handing over power. However, they seemed to have forgotten a vital point. The person who could single-handedly turn over the messy account books of the entire manor at the age of 13, calmly putting 4 veteran head stewards into the dark prison for embezzlement without blinking an eye. The person who could turn tattered jewelry shops and restaurants into gold mines famous in the capital. Would that person easily let a shallow woman like second aunt lead her by the nose or accept letting others trample on her dignity? I smiled, but the smile did not reach the bottom of my eyes. I waved my hand lightly as a feather. The old butler standing next to me seemed to have been waiting for the order for a long time, immediately leading a group of muscular servants carrying piles of thick account books, placing them with a loud thud right in the middle of the hall. The male cousin of the third branch was originally a sharp person. Seeing this scene, he shuddered and whispered into his younger sister's ear with a trembling voice. "It is over, second sister has set up a dragnet. Second aunt will be peeled alive this time. How dare she touch a fire ant nest?" I did not bother to pay attention to the gossip around, just smiling elegantly, conveniently picking up 2 red brocade-covered books and throwing them straight in front of second aunt. The sound of paper hitting the table's surface rang dryly, causing her heart to skip a beat. "Aunt, this is the entire battle record of the second branch recorded without missing a single stroke of ink. Please enjoy." I leisurely took a sip of tea, my voice calm but full of power. From the year before last to now, roughly on the surface of the books, the second branch has skillfully pocketed 8,000 silver taels. If counting the tricks of setting up ghost lists, falsely declaring the purchase price of materials, and adding the amounts temporarily borrowed from public funds and then disappearing without a trace, the total is 14,000 silver taels. I looked up, my gaze sharp as a dagger. This amount of money is enough to buy a few first-class estates. Aunt, do you want to personally explain whose pocket the silver of the manor has grown wings and flown into? The color of second aunt's face instantly turned from pale to purple. She was like having her tail stepped on, screaming a piercing sound, jumping up from the chair. Eleanor, you brat who is still wet behind the ears, dare to speak nonsense. Who are you to dare to falsely accuse your elders? Do you intend to rely on power to force people, changing white to black to seize this manor? Down in the hall, Winnie was holding half a chicken leg, staring blankly at second aunt, who was going crazy, then looked at the pile of books, mumbling, 14,000 taels, how many chicken legs can that buy? 14,000 taels, you are truly bold as the sky, daring to utter that number without fear of being struck by lightning. Second aunt screamed, her face red because of both fear and humiliation. How much salary does our second branch receive in a year? Saving for a lifetime might not even touch the heel of that amount of silver. Where did you get the evidence to dare to move your lips? Sitting next to her, second uncle's face also sank like autumn lake water. Although he knew I was not the type of person who liked to spit blood on people, that figure of 14,000 taels was truly too big a slap to his face. Nora. Second uncle cleared his throat, his voice trembling a little. Could there be some misunderstanding in this matter? We are all one family. How can such a huge number be possible? I smiled faintly, leisurely pushing the brocade-covered book towards second uncle, my slender finger pointing at each line of black and white ink clearly. Second uncle, you are right. The second branch indeed did not receive that huge amount of silver, because this 14,000 silver taels never flowed into your pocket. It secretly turned its path, slipping into aunt's private chest long ago. My eyes shifted to second aunt, seeing her start to tremble like a soaked dog. I have sent people to secretly investigate the path of every coin. Strangely enough, most of this silver was transformed and then registered under the name of aunt's beloved nephew on her maternal side. Second uncle, if you still have doubts, just try to calm down and recall. In recent years, aunt's maternal family was originally declining, so why did they suddenly rise like a kite meeting the wind, buying land and gardens, living even more prosperously than officials in the court? Where did the silver come from? Did it fall from the sky? As soon as the words ended, second uncle suddenly paused, his eyes staring at his wife, as if wanting to see through her heart. The whole hall buzzed with discussion, while second aunt's face had no drop of blood left, her mouth stuttering, unable to speak. At the corner of the table, Winnie swallowed the piece of chicken wing, mumbling. It turns out she took our family's silver to raise her nephew. This aunt is truly generous. I did not let second aunt catch her breath to deny. Each word uttered was light as a feather, but heavy as 1,000 pounds of rock. 100 acres of fertile fields outside the city, a 3-room mansion just inaugurated still smelling of paint, and even the 2 young and beautiful concubines that aunt's nephew just took in last month. Aunt, try to say, where did those luxurious things come from? Are they not all the sweat, tears, and every silver coin of our Xianxia manor? Second uncle's face at this time had changed from doubt to horror, and finally pitch black like dark clouds before a storm. Account books could be faked, numbers could be fictional, but he saw his wife's family situation clearly. Previously seeing his brother-in-law's family suddenly change their lives, he honestly praised them, asking how they got such luck. At that time, second aunt just hummed and hawed to pass it over, her eyes avoiding, her expression uncertain. It turned out she was not only a greedy person, but also a type of house rat digging through walls to suck the blood of her husband's family to provide for the pests on her maternal side. Slap! A resounding sound made the entire hall silent. No one expected the second master, famous for being gentle and weak, to now strike a slap of fire, causing second aunt to fall to the ground, the corner of her mouth bleeding. Second uncle pointed a trembling finger at his wife's face, his voice breaking with resentment. You poisonous woman, the money in the manor. I always reminded you to be frugal and save, to make a dowry for our daughter later, lest she be looked down upon by people when she goes to her husband's house. You dared to take my daughter's entire future to fatten that group of destructive nephews. Yet normally what golden words did you utter? Second uncle roared, resentment rising to his throat. You said the daughter standing firm in her husband's house is due to destiny. The dowry is just a token of heart. It turns out you heartlessly cut off my daughter's future to bring white silver to provide for the pests on your maternal side. Second aunt, hit by the thunderous slap, fell prone on the floor, jewelry falling from her head. She held her swelling cheek, her cloudy eyes looking at her husband in disbelief. But instead of repenting, that woman suddenly went crazy, screaming like a beast cornered. So what if I support my nephew? Quentin Liu is the only bloodline. the incense burner of our Lu family. I am his biological aunt. Could I watch him suffer? I just borrowed a little spare silver from your Jiang family, yet you dare to lay hands on me. She cried and laughed at the same time, her trembling finger pointing straight at my face. You hit me because of this girl Eleanor. Who is she to demand housekeeping power? In my opinion, that person with an improper name should become a concubine for my nephew. Wait until my Quentin is tired of playing, then sell her to the brothel for the world to trample freely, to see how long she can remain arrogant. Slap. Another slap, this time even heavier and more decisive than anger. Second uncle was shaking with anger. The blow sent second aunt flying into a door frame, lying on the ground unable to even groan. You lewd and treacherous woman, you calculated against your own daughter, and now you have the heart of a snake to plot against my niece. Today if I do not teach a wicked woman like you on behalf of the ancestors, I am no longer a Zhang. The main hall suddenly turned into a chaotic battlefield. Screams, the sound of breaking things, and insults intertwined. I calmly withdrew my gaze, glancing slightly towards grandmother. The old madam still sat there, hand counting prayer beads, her face calm like a rippleless lake. It seems the old lady had long seen through everyone's hearts, just waiting for the moment to be ripe to clean up the household once and for all. I tilted my head to look to the side, seeing Winnie gaping, the chicken leg in her hand almost falling to the ground, looking no different from a bewildered wooden statue. I sighed softly, grabbing her small hand still stained with a bit of grease, pulling her up. Let's go, the good play ends here, let's go back to the courtyard to rest. It is too noisy here, not good for digestion. Winnie followed me in a daze, her mouth still mumbling. Second sister, it turns out you have been living with these hungry tigers all this time. It is truly too scary. Winnie widened her eyes, her small mouth gaping into a perfect circle, looking just like a carp gasping for air. Oh high heavens and thick earth, second sister, you just saw such an earth-shattering scene, yet now you still have the mind to go to sleep. Tonight for Winnie was even more shocking than the day she aggressively led troops to question me. This eldest miss seemed to be scared out of her wits, absolutely refusing to sleep alone in the West Wing, just hugging her small pillow, sneaking straight into my bed like a small rabbit looking for a burrow. You must explain clearly to me, exactly which way the wind blew that tonight turned into that tragic scene. Could it be because I returned that trouble arose? She spoke while trying to squeeze her messy head onto my pillow. I helplessly reached out to push her sweaty forehead a bit further away. To say it is unrelated would be lying to oneself. Indeed, you have a share of the credit. Winnie's face immediately became serious, her eyebrows furrowed, looking both honest and strangely foolish. Looking at that innocent face, I finally could not hold back and burst into laughter. You have been back at the manor for these many days. Surely you have seen through people's hearts a little, haven't you? Father and mother are also your parents. They are both virtuous people, with temperaments so mild they border on weakness. Mother possesses the heart of a bodhisattva, disliking conflict, and fundamentally cannot suppress the servants who act like foxes, borrowing the tiger's might, let alone manage the greed of the clansmen. I turned over to look at the ceiling, my voice steady. Second aunt has long harbored the ambition to seize power, wanting to turn the Marquis's manor into her private treasury. The trouble is, her heart is corrupt. She only wants to scrape the Zhang family's resources dry to provide for that useless, incompetent nephew of her maternal family. As for third aunt, her temperament is exactly like mother's, preferring to stay in her lane and follow the rules. Precisely because of this, when I was only 13, grandmother saw the big picture and decisively handed the housekeeping authority into my hands. Before you returned, I could still use my authority to suppress all the undercurrents. However, since the news that the true daughter was about to return to the manor, the people of the second branch thought their time had come, wanting to use your hand to overthrow me. They hoped to be the fisherman who profits while the snipe and clam fight. Winnie heard the intense part and hurriedly propped her chin up, her round eyes questioning. So the purpose of the second branch was to take advantage of the wind to break the bamboo shoots, using the occasion of my return to kick you out. I shook my head slightly, a faint smile appearing on my lips. Not necessarily. I think they were just using the trick of shaking the tree to scare the monkey, shouting a sky-high price only to settle for a price on the ground. After all, I have been by grandmother and our parents' side for so many years. The affection is deep and heavy. It is not like they can just sweep me out the door like fallen leaves immediately. Second aunt originally intended to use you as an excuse to apply pressure, making me panic and let go of the account books. She thought that while distant water cannot save a nearby fire, I would turn a blind eye to her deficits to save face for you. But unfortunately, her calculations were not as good as mine. I leaned close to her ear, lowering my voice mysteriously. In reality, grandmother and I had long joined forces to cast a large net. Try to use your brain. If grandmother had not secretly given the green light, how could the second branch's people easily slip through the gates of your courtyard as if they were going to market? Moreover, your return was a warning bell. Both of us have reached the hair-pinning age, and the day of marriage is not far off. I cannot hold the scepter of authority in this Zhang family forever. So grandmother allowed me to set up a trap. We drove second aunt into a corner, pushing the embezzled amount to an earth-shattering level that the entire clan could not cover up. This single strike was killing two birds with one stone, both cutting off the second branch's scheme and sweeping away obstacles so that later, when mother or third aunt takes over, it will be smooth sailing. I spoke while feeling that I was truly a genius, analyzing thoroughly and clearly down to every strand of hair. However, when I turned around intending to receive a look of admiration from my sole audience, Winnie had already sunk into a deep sleep ages ago, her small mouth slightly open, her dumpling face so peaceful that it seemed all the palace intrigue plots just now were merely the buzzing of mosquitoes in her ear. I was truly playing the lute to a cow. I exhausted my mind to explain the grand plan, while she treated my words like a sutra for the dead, listening for a while before ascending straight to the dream realm. After that thunderous storm at the banquet, the second branch finally learned to behave, retracting their heads like turtles. Second uncle felt ashamed before the ancestors, so he ordered second aunt to be grounded, completely cutting off all contact with the pests on her maternal side. As for our third miss, after vaguely watching the lively drama, her mind remained free of worldly dust, returning to her great career of eating and sleeping. Every time I looked at her carefree appearance, a boundless admiration would rise in my heart. That small head was truly a strangely empty land. I wagered that if one stuffed a few ingots of silver in there, one would surely hear a clinking sound echoing through the manor when she walked. However, while the Zhang family treated Winnie like a precious jewel, outsiders only saw a fat piece of bait. That day, I had just returned from handling business outside the manor, my heels not yet touching the threshold of my courtyard, when I heard bad news. Someone had sent word to the door proposing marriage for Winnie. My feet froze in mid-air, my brows furrowed tightly, and I immediately changed direction, turning straight toward our parents' courtyard. The young master of the Lai family. My mother's face was radiant as she nodded repeatedly. That is right, Nora, what do you think? The Lai family is a prestigious noble clan, and it is the maternal home of consort Lai, who is currently favored in the palace. Father saw my face suddenly darken like threatening storm clouds, and immediately put down his teacup, asking sternly, Nora, do you see something wrong with this marriage? I did not hesitate for a moment, my voice cold as thin ice. Not good, extremely not good. Winnie absolutely cannot marry into the tiger's den and wolf's lair of the Lai family. If these words of objection leaked out of the Changchun Manor's gates, outsiders would certainly fabricate stories that I, the fake daughter, was obstructing my sister out of jealousy for her glory. However, my parents possessed a precious virtue, or to put it bluntly, blind trust. If I said a chicken was a chicken, it was a chicken. If I said a duck was a duck. Since Nora has confirmed it is not good, there must be a hidden reason. Father stroked his beard, looking thoughtful. It is just, do you know that eldest young master? I paused slightly, my eyes narrowing. Regarding that eldest young master, your daughter has only heard rumors in the wind. This matter cannot be rushed. Father, mother, later I will send my network to investigate the roots of that Lai fellow. Not to mention his character, just looking at the Lai family's behavior, it is clear they refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. They definitely have ulterior motives. I looked up at my parents sitting side by side in front of me, that simple, bewildered expression. Oh my, why was it so strangely familiar? Exactly like the mold that cast Winnie's face every time she saw a chicken leg. I helplessly took a deep breath, beginning a beginner's lesson on strategy. Father, mother, try to calm down and think. How long has Winnie been back at the manor? For years, the one moving in the noble circles of the capital, maintaining the face of the Zhang family's legitimate daughter, has been me. In terms of age, I am also the elder sister. Yet the Lai family did not choose me. Who is familiar with the capital? but aimed straight for a girl who has just returned with wet feet. First, they despise my status as an adopted daughter and do not want to welcome someone not of the same bloodline. Second, within the deep curtains of their inner residence, there must be something shady that they cannot let a well-informed person like me know. What shady thing? A clear voice suddenly rang out right next to my ear, making me jump. Winnie had sneaked in at some point, her dumpling face revealing extreme curiosity. I glared at her in annoyance and then pulled her straight down to sit on the chair next to me. If you want to know what ghost it is, sit still there, let me find a ghost catcher to investigate for you. Hearing this, Winnie's eyes lit up. Second sister, are you planning to use those servants to break his legs like that old woman the other day? If so, let me go watch too. I want to see what the ghost of the Lai family looks like when losing teeth. After a moment of daze, the slow brains of the Zhang parents finally decided to operate. Father slammed the table, his momentum blazing. Nora speaks correctly. Anyone who dares to look down on my Nora's status must have a problem with their character. Our Zhang family has long entered your name into the genealogy book. You are the legitimate eldest daughter who dares to gossip. Not to mention, who in this capital does not know that my eldest daughter is full of ability and proficient in housekeeping. They deliberately avoided you to target Winnie. It is most likely because they saw your younger sister is gentle and want to bring home someone easy to bully to manipulate. Winnie sat silently listening for a while, her eyebrows knitted tightly, and finally concluded the main point. Dad, do you mean that I look stupid and easy to deceive? Seeing this, Mother hurriedly pulled the little dumpling into her arms, coaxing her like a 3-year-old child. Who said that? Who dares to say my precious is stupid? You are the smartest, the most clever. This intelligence is all inherited from your parents. I stood by the side, the corner of my mouth twitching incessantly. Truly inherited without deviating by an inch. Smart to the point of making people worry about the family's future. 7 days later, the huge amount of silver I threw out to the spies brought back news worth every penny. I threw the stack of secret reports on the table, my voice cold as ice. That young Master Lancelot is essentially a typical mama's boy. From the time he was born until now, big or small matters, he has no right to decide for himself. From where to study, what to eat, to which shoes to wear today and what color fan to hold, everything must be approved by his mother. Therefore, the Lai family getting a wife is merely wanting to find a puppet who knows how to bear children, easy to mold to please that authoritative old lady. The most hateful thing is that Lance, while unable to escape his mother's control, has developed a deviant psychology of resistance. Over the years, regarding the pretty maids that his mother planted in his room, not a single one escaped his lewd hands. I looked at Winnie, who was holding a cake, frozen in place, and added another blow. He is not only a mama's boy but also a hypocrite who likes to play dirty tricks behind his relatives' backs. Winnie, if you marry into that place, I fear that in less than 3 days, you will be eaten alive by your mother-in-law and husband working together. My voice was as cold as frost on a winter night, every word uttered making the listeners shudder. That Madame Lai never sees the stain on her son's face from beginning to end. If any maid accidentally spends the night in Lance's room, the next morning, the one dragged out to be scolded and cursed terribly is always that weak girl. That woman is so vicious that she accuses them of the crime of climbing into bed to seduce, then hastily marries them off to the lowest, filthiest servants in the manner to act high and mighty and punish the sin. A mother and son pair of slaves, one lewd and depraved, the other with the heart of a wolf and lungs of a dog, ruining people's lives without shaking their hands. Such a filthy family, rotten to the very marrow, dares to show their face to propose to the treasure of my Changchun manor. It is truly dreaming in broad daylight. As soon as father heard this, he flew into a rage, slamming the table and standing up abruptly. Truly a bunch of beasts in human skin, excessive to the extreme. After speaking, he just paced back and forth in the hall, panting with anger. Before I could get dizzy from his figure, rotating like a buffalo pulling a grinder, Mother finally hurriedly pulled him back to sit on the chair. All right, husband, calm down. Fortunately, our wise Nora exposed their true faces early. We just need to tactfully find an excuse to refuse this marriage and the matter is done. Why worry about such people and shorten our lifespan? Although Winnie had just returned to the manor, it seemed the rebellious nature in her blood made her understand me even better than our parents. When the two of us left the main hall, she suddenly slowed down, leaning close to my ear to whisper suspiciously, Second sister, do you really intend to just tactfully refuse and let the Lai family go unpunished outside the law? This does not resemble your decisive style at all. I curled my lips slightly, glancing at her meaningfully. What now? Are you expecting me to take action to vent your anger for you again? Winnie scratched her chubby cheeks, her round eyes shining with an unusually sharp look. Not for me, right? I think you intend to take action for yourself. Anyone who dares to look down on my second sister's status will definitely not have a good ending, right? Indeed, the little rabbit staying next to the fox for a long time has started to smell blood. Second sister is supremely intelligent with deep schemes. How could you be willing to let such petty people joke over your head? You definitely have to make them taste suffering to be satisfied. I could not help but laugh out loud, tilting my head close to her ear, lowering my voice mysteriously. I have already sent people to lure Lance to the 100 Flowers Pavilion for entertainment. The beauties there have received my silver and will certainly use 100 methods and 1,000 plans to make the young master lie fascinated to the point of forgetting the way home, sinking into lust unable to pull himself out. If Madame Lai wants to make a big scene, she can just drag her face to the 100 Flowers Pavilion to scream and cry. The one losing face will be the Lai family, having nothing to do with my manor. Not finished yet, what else? Winnie swallowed her saliva, her eyes bright. Furthermore, I have found out that the 100 Flowers Pavilion is actually the underground property of Prince Kang. If the Lai family relies on their power to act recklessly and offend the prince, Lance's official career will be considered dissolved into smoke. At that time, even if Consort Lai is the mother of the nation or favored in the palace, it will be difficult to save his lame life. Hearing this, Winnie jumping back a step, looking at me like looking at a female demon with vast supernatural powers. She stood there scratching her head for a long time, then tiptoed back to my side, her voice tiny. Second sister, regarding the rude things I did when I first returned to the manor, speaking without restraint, now I ask to admit my fault to you. Sister, please do not sell me to the 100 Flowers Pavilion. I felt both amused and helpless, only able to raise my hand to pinch her white, chubby face hard. The feeling was indeed very soft, very satisfying to the hand. I was sheltered by the Zhang family for many years. In my eyes, the Marquis couple and Winnie were no different from a nest of innocent rabbits. They were warm, weak, without any ability to attack, allowing a fox rolling in the calculating business world like me to have a place to squeeze in and find some human warmth. However, it was not until the Flower Appreciation Festival organized by the County Princess that I truly understood what a rabbit in a rage looked like. That day, because I was busy discussing business with some shopkeepers, I arrived 15 minutes late. Unexpectedly, as soon as I stepped into the royal garden, I saw a chaotic scene. Winnie and another young lady were being pulled apart by servants in the middle of the crowd, her dumpling face red with anger. I hurriedly glided over, my robes fluttering like the wings of a swallow, decisively pulling Winnie behind me to protect her. All was peaceful, so what on earth happened to cause such a disturbance? In the middle of the County Princess's flower festival, could there be some misunderstanding? Winnie pressed her lips tight, her round eyes covered with a thin layer of red mist full of grievance. She looked at me, her throat choked with bitterness, seemingly just needing to open her lips for one word, and all the grievance would turn into tears and pour out. Opposite us was a young lady with a face like a flower and skin like powder, but her eyes were full of arrogance. Seeing me appear, she not only did not restrain herself but also smugly pointed straight at Winnie's face and shouted loudly. I wondered who it was. Turned out to be the second miss of Changchun Manor. I really do not know how your noble manor educates its daughters. We sisters were discussing literature properly, when she suddenly aggressively rushed over to start a fight. I think we should let the public see clearly just how rude and rough this type of goods picked up from the countryside really is. Hearing the words, picked up, Winnie's chest heaved, intending to rush up and risk her life, but I held her hand tightly. I gently patted her head, my voice gentle as the spring breeze. Do not be afraid, second sister is here. Even if the sky falls, it cannot touch a single hair on your head. Amidst the many eyes pouring in waiting to see a good show, I still maintained a calm demeanor, not a bit angry, smiling as I looked at the opposite side. How Changchun Manor educates its daughters, I fear I dare not trouble you, little sister, to worry your mind about. It is just that your rudeness, using words to insult my third sister, is truly difficult to close one eye and ignore. Why don't you sincerely say an apology to Winnie, and I will treat it as wind blowing past clouds, pursuing it no further." Hearing this, that young lady's face turned red with anger, laughing coldly. "You want me to lower myself to apologize to her?" Clearly it was she. Before she could finish, I took a step forward, closing the distance, the aura radiating from me making her unconsciously shudder. I did not let her react. My voice was low, but every word was like a needle stabbing straight into a fatal point. "The hairpin on your head is truly special. If I am not mistaken, this is the latest design launched by the Treasure Pearl Pavilion 2 months ago, right? The twin ice butterfly hairpin. There are only 3 in this entire capital. But if I remember correctly, every one of these hairpins when sold comes with a matching gold, thread-embroidered tassel attached to a handheld fan. I wonder if that tassel is not currently on your fan, but is instead in the hands of some young master." She trembled violently, her pupils shrinking in terror. I curled my lips, adding a fatal blow. "You have not yet finished your mourning period. Supposedly you should be plain and elegant, yet you dare to secretly wear such gorgeous jewelry to show off, and even give a token of love to a man. If this matter reaches your father's ears, or worse, the clan ancestral hall, guess if your reputation can still be kept." The young lady who was just loudly insulting Winnie now had legs that suddenly turned to jelly, almost kneeling on the ground. She stammered, unable to speak, looking at me with eyes full of pleading mixed with extreme fear. Winnie standing behind, although not fully understanding the deep meaning about the tassel or the mourning period, seeing the opponent who was arrogant, just now become like a cat on hot bricks, she immediately wiped her tears, lifting her chin looking up with great smugness. I leisurely took a step back, dusting off my skirt which held not a speck of dust, and smiled elegantly as it had just been discussing the weather. "Well, do you still feel that my third sister needs to apologize to you?" At this moment, that young lady's face had no blood left, her lips trembling, unable to utter a word. Her eyes, which had looked at me like a sharp hawk just moments ago, had now turned into those of a pitiful chick, filled with pleading and begging. I smiled slightly, taking her trembling hand, my voice sweet as if pouring honey into her ear. "You are all in the flower of your youth, your temperaments are still a bit impulsive. Making a noise over a few sentences is a common matter in the world. As an elder sister, naturally, I will not hold a grudge. Be good as long as you sincerely apologize to Winnie once. From now on we are still good sisters, and your secret will be regarded as if no one has ever known it." Under the weight of 1,000 pounds called the twin ice butterfly secret, how could she dare to utter half a word of complaint? She hurriedly bowed her head, whispering an apology to Winnie. Then she scurried away as fast as a wisp of smoke. On the carriage returning to the manor, the atmosphere was strangely quiet. Winnie sat opposite me, her small head kept bowing down, occasionally glancing at me, then hurriedly looking away, her face clearly showing she wanted to speak but stopped. I took a sip of tea, helplessly glancing at her and asking lightly, "Did you win the fight just now?" Winnie was busy chasing her train of thought, and was stunned for a few seconds by my unexpected question, but immediately after, her tomboy nature rose up. She immediately patted her chest, her eyes bright as torches, nodding repeatedly. "Of course I won, didn't you see when I unleashed my moves?" She could only hold her head and take the beating. If those servants hadn't intervened, I would have taught her what manners are. Hearing this, I burst out laughing, my sigh carrying a few parts of indulgence. Winning is good. If you lost the argument and also lost the fight, where would the face of the Marquis's manor hide? It seems that in the future, I must assign 2 more maids with high martial arts skills to you so I can rest assured letting you go out to battle again. Hearing that, Winnie giggled, brazenly squeezing close to me, rubbing her small head against her sister's shoulder. "Oh, second sister, do you not intend to interrogate me on why I caused a disturbance at the flower festival? Do you not blame me for acting rudely and ruining the family reputation?" I gently stroked her sideburns, replying calmly, "Father, mother, and you trust me unconditionally, and I treat my family the same way. Those noble young ladies, if not having poisonous tongues, then have narrow minds. Surely they were either gossiping about your past or fabricating bad things behind my back. You taking action to teach them a lesson is reasonable and sensible. I cannot praise you enough. Why would I blame you? It is just that you were a bit too hasty. You should have endured and waited for me to arrive, so we could gang up on them together, saving you from being pulled by those servants and suffering a disadvantage." Winnie tilted her head looking at me, her big round eyes finally showing a belated worry. But does my causing such a disturbance bring trouble to the family? I gave a faint smile, raising my eyebrows arrogantly, the aura of the person holding the economic lifeline of the manor bursting forth. Trouble. Such a tiny matter is also called trouble. Winnie, you overestimate yourself too much. If we rank the people who cause disasters in this Xianxia manor, your level would not even make it into the top 10. Winnie heard this and laughed until she leaned back and forth, clutching her belly and snuggling into my arms like a small kitten finding a safe haven. However, the peaceful days of verbal sparring did not last long. Xianxia Manor once again welcomed a matchmaker. But this time, the identity of the suitor caused the entire capital to buzz with excitement, the heir of Prince Su's manor. They only presented betrothal gifts asking to marry a legitimate daughter of the Zhang family, without bothering to point out by name which young lady it was. But from the grandmother to the servants, everyone silently assumed that the person catching the blue eye of the prince's hair was me. Besides the second Miss Eleanor, who is talented and beautiful, and excellent at housekeeping, who else could it be here? Father and mother sat in the hall looking at the dazzling betrothal gifts with hearts full of confusion, calculating back and forth but unable to guess the mind of that arrogant heir. Nora, tell us, what kind of chess game is this Prince Su's manor playing? Faced with the ambiguous proposal from the prince's manor, my parents calculated until their hair turned white but could not come up with a plan, finally choosing to take both me and Winnie to pay respects to the princess consort of Prince Su. The result was exactly as predicted. The princess consort held my hand for a long time, immediately removing the top-quality jade bracelet she was wearing on her wrist to bestow upon me. As for Winnie, she only received a string of brand-new coral beads. Although precious, it was clearly a reward for a junior guest. My heart felt heavy. Honestly speaking, even if the princess consort had set her eyes on Winnie, I would never want to marry her into a palace as deep as the sea. But now that people publicly chose me, I was anxious, afraid that my little rabbit would feel jealous and disappointed because of that favoritism. Tossing and turning for several nights, I decided to go to her courtyard. Now that our sisterly bond was close, I did not want any cracks between the two of us. Winnie, listen to me. Prince Su's manor looks glamorous, but in reality, it is not a blessed place to entrust one's life. The inner chamber of the prince's manor is teeming with wives and concubines fighting endlessly. The princess consort has only one hair under her knees. She does not want to find a daughter-in-law of equal social status, but is desperately looking for a capable assistant to help her clean up the backyard. I sincerely held her hand, my voice lowering. Moreover, the prince's manor has sky-high power, far exceeding our marquis's manor. If you suffer grievances or hardships in there later, I fear our maternal home will be powerless to demand justice even if we want to. So, I had not even finished the sentence, so do not be sad about not being chosen. Winnie suddenly lifted her head from the small chest placed on the wooden couch. Her eyes shone brightly, cheerfully cutting off my words. Nora, come here quickly and look at this. This is a treasure I painstakingly begged and shamelessly asked Mother for, to save specifically for you. I froze, all the golden words prepared beforehand suddenly stuck in my throat. It turned out that the pile of treasures in the chest were all sent to Winnie by her foster parents in distant Jiangnan. What stunned me the most was that among those souvenirs, there was a gift reserved specifically for the fake daughter me. Winnie held up a string of beads emitting a pure fragrance, showing it off excitedly. Look, this is the golden mandarin duck agarwood string from Qinian Temple, extremely effective in praying for marriage destiny. Before getting married, every daughter of the merchants in Jiangnan must beg for a string like this to pray for marital harmony. I specially wrote a letter, begging my mother in the countryside to wait up to the temple to ask for it for you by all means. She tilted her head, her clear eyes without a speck of impurity, giggling. How is it? Am I good to you? Later when you marry into the prince's manor, remember to bring it along so the hair will only spoil you alone. Looking at her innocent appearance, I could only smile helplessly in my heart. It turned out that all the anxieties and calculations of an old fox like me became superfluous before the sincerity of this silly rabbit. She did not need the glory of the prince's manor, she only needed her sister to be happy. My marriage was considered a done deal. Naturally, the major life event of Winnie was also brought to the discussion table. These past few days, the atmosphere in the Marquis Manor was as tense as preparing for battle. Parents held a long list of names of noble young masters every day, flipping it back and forth, then sighing short and long. disliking this one for ordinary appearance, fearing that one for a complex inner household. Looking over and over again, they found no one worthy of their pearl. Regarding choosing a husband for the legitimate daughter, originally an adopted daughter about to be married like me should not interfere to avoid gossip. However, looking at the ability to judge people of my parents and Winnie, I truly could not bear to sit still. Father scratched his head and ears, finally looking at me with eyes full of hope. Nora, you are a well-informed person and have sharp eyes for people. Is there truly no young master in your heart that catches your eye to entrust your sister to? I sighed, looking at the 3 Zhang family members looking at me in unison like looking at a savior. Feeling the burden on my shoulders seemed even heavier than managing the manor's treasury. Looking into my mother's bright eyes full of trust, I felt both amused and deeply moved. Truly a whole family of rabbits, in the end, still having to rely on the schemes of this fox. Actually, I already have a candidate in my heart. Hearing this, Father slapped his thigh, laughing loudly with satisfaction. I said it, just let Nora choose, and it cannot be wrong even if we run to the sky. If left to the 2 of us sitting here guessing blindly, we might bring the wrong husband for Winnie. I gave a wry smile, taking out a stack of secret reports that had been meticulously investigated long ago from my sleeve, placing them on the table. The person I am aiming for is the 3rd young master of Princess Xianxia's manor. Previously, that manor also had intentions to propose, but at that time Mother was still apprehensive that the family had many children and grandchildren, fearing complex relationships would make Winnie suffer. However, Princess Xianxia is a virtuous person famous in the capital. Previously, when participating in banquets, I had contact with the 2 sisters-in-law of that family. They are both open-minded women with radiant faces, and the relationship between sisters-in-law is harmonious like a full bowl of water, without any jealousy. I turned each page of the secret report, my voice full of persuasion. This time I sent people to investigate to the very roots. Indeed, the princess's manor is a blessed place, suitable for 3rd sister's personality more than anywhere else. The princess and her husband have deep affection, giving birth to 3 sons and 1 daughter. The only daughter has been married off long ago. Now in the manor, the mother-in-law and daughters-in-law are close like flesh and blood, respecting the upper and yielding to the lower. Although it is a large crowded family, the family style is extremely upright, absolutely no stories of wives and concubines fighting for favor or maids climbing into beds. The grandsons in the manor are all legitimate, with a solid foundation. As for the 3rd young master, although his talent for governing the state is not equal to his 2 elder brothers, he is a person with a kind heart, a cheerful and generous personality. A person without ambition and kind-hearted like him, marrying Winnie over there. Isn't it a match made in heaven? Parents heard this and nodded like pestles, their eyes overflowing with satisfaction. Winnie sat on the side hearing the part about no concubines. Her eyes lit up like stars, gently pulling my sleeve and whispering, "Second sister, you say that 3rd young master has a cheerful personality. Does he like to eat chicken legs like me?" I continued to pour honey into my parents' ears, every word hitting their psychology of loving their child. That 3rd young master is heard to be an extremely interesting person. In his life, he has only 2 hobbies. One is searching for strange and delicious flavors in the world. The second is traveling to enjoy the landscape. His temperament is open-minded, extremely suitable for Winnie's eating and playing habits. In the princess's manor, the housekeeping power is shouldered by the eldest sister-in-law, and the assistance is handled by the 2nd sister-in-law. If Winnie marries over there, she will legitimately be a leisurely young mistress, only enjoying the blessings bestowed by heaven from morning to night, needing not dip her hands into the headache-inducing account books or the power struggles in the backyard. Hearing this, my parents' eyes shone as if they had caught gold. The 2 of them regretted not being able to hold hands and dance a circle right in the middle of the hall. Good? Too good? Absolutely wonderful. It is still Nora who is the most reliable in the world. Father cheerfully gave the order. I will immediately send someone to respond to the matchmaker from Princess Xianxia's manor, choosing a good day and auspicious month for the 2 families to meet. If the young couple is compatible, we will settle the marriage for Winnie immediately. Looking at the extremely joyful figures of the 2 of them, I only knew whether to cry or laugh. After all, this is the major life event of their biological daughter, yet they completely entrusted it to me, not bothering to confirm half a word. Truly, their hearts are overly vast. However, the Zhang family is not entirely full of innocent rabbits. Amidst that nest of rabbits, there is still a head rabbit who is extremely alert and sharp. My eldest brother. Big Brother is the pride of the Zhang family, complete in both civil and martial arts, and highly regarded by the emperor. It is only because he is busy guarding the frontier outside the capital all year round that he let this marquis's manor fall into the current state of innocence. I still clearly remember years ago, when leaving the capital to take up his post, Big Brother stood in front of the manor gate, holding our parents' hands and instructing them over and over again, saying that they must listen to Nora's words, absolutely do not worry about things themselves lest they ruin the porridge. Our Zhang family has a great blessing that everyone is extremely obedient. As soon as a supremely intelligent person appears in the house, the whole family immediately automatically lines up, fighting to hug that person's thigh, without leaving half a step. Parents have tearfully held my hand more than once, saying that adopting me that year was the wisest decision, accumulating virtue for eternity for the couple. In their eyes, having me guard the inner household of the Zhang family, calming the storms, is a blessing from heaven. I was originally a person of iron and stone, not good at dealing with tearful or overly emotional situations. Every time this happened, I only knew how to use joking words, laughing and talking happily to cover up the emotion rising in my chest. However, in the quiet night, I asked my own heart, stepping into the door of the Zhang family, was it not the great blessing of my life? I was born with a calculating mind, a narrow heart, seeking revenge for any grievance. If not for being warmed and nurtured by the gentleness and kindness, to the point of innocence of everyone in the Zhang family for so many years, I fear that even killing people and setting fires would not make me feel ashamed. I would harm moral principles and still take it as glory. It was their innocence and tolerant hearts that restrained the beast within me, teaching me what the warmth of the human world is. Thank heaven for showing mercy, letting me become a member of the Zhang family. For many years being loved by parents like a precious gem, siblings harmonious, standing side by side. Me pouring all my heart and strength to support the inner household, protecting the peace for the Marquis's manor, to me, is just a tiny repayment, not worth claiming credit compared to that great grace and virtue. Epilogue. After the two sisters married, when Sebastian Su returned to the manor, the setting sun was stretching across the empty veranda. I was sitting by the desk, leisurely teaching two little girls to memorize the 100 Family Surnames book. He had long been accustomed to the fact that in his manor, the shadows of the children from younger sister Winnie's family were always looming. Sebastian did not hesitate at all, skillfully pulling out 2 pieces of maltose candy from his sleeve, picking up each child to kiss loudly on the cheek, considering it a grand amnesty for the children to leave school early. Watching the 2 tiny figures holding hands and running out to the yard, Sebastian immediately turned around, decisively pulling me into the inner room and closing the door. I burst out laughing, raising my hand to knock lightly on his solid chest a few times, intending to scold him gently, but I could not push him away. The strength of an hare who fought on the battlefield was not for show. I had to helplessly let him act recklessly for a while. Sebastian kissed until he was satisfied, his arms still tightly hugging my waist, refusing to loosen even half apart. After struggling for a long time, I finally had no other choice but to obediently sit on his lap, letting him bury his head in my neck. The major matter regarding the salt tax seems to have a result, right? I asked softly, my fingers playing with his sideburns. Sebastian nuzzled his chin into the hollow of my shoulder, taking a deep breath as if to shake off all the fatigue of the officialdom, his voice low and full of doting. Sure enough, nothing can be hidden from my wife. Eleanor, you are so wise. Tell me, how can I take my eyes off you for even a moment? I smiled faintly, looking out the window. Winnie is now the daughter-in-law of Princess Yuangxin's house, happily eating chicken legs every day, occasionally bringing her children over here to cause trouble. Parents are enjoying their old age at the Marquis's manor, and Big Brother has been promoted. The fox of yesteryear has finally found a warm cave, with a hunter willing to put down his bow and arrow to hold her hand for this entire life. Sebastian's eyes shone like torches, his voice carrying a few parts of smugness. Today I presented the strategy you suggested before the court. The emperor heard it and was indeed impressed, immediately approving it right on the spot. Oh, my wife, you are so wise. You should have worn the official uniform with me to the court. Keeping you here in the backyard is truly a waste of talent. I chuckled, pushing his big head that was acting spoiled away a bit without hesitation, my voice calm as lake water. What do I know about national affairs? It is merely using a merchant's mind to calculate human hearts. The world turns, but human calculations always revolve around the same things. Some seek fame, others seek profit. Everyone wants to head towards blessings and avoid disasters. As long as the new regulations bring enough profit to fill their greed, those old, rotten rules will naturally be thrown into a dark corner by people, with no one regretting them. Sebastian looked at me, but his eyes at this moment clearly no longer had a single shred of mind for the salt tax or court affairs. He tightened his embrace, his hot breath blowing into my ear, his voice hoarse and full of ambiguity. National affairs are considered done, now let us discuss family affairs. Tomorrow I am exempted from the morning court, tonight I was startled, immediately understanding the wicked thought kindling in this Prince Heir's head. Not letting him finish his sentence, I hurriedly reached out to cover his mouth tightly, glaring threateningly. Stop right there for me, nothing is happening tonight. I already promised Winnie's 2 children that I would stay tonight to tell them folktales until they fall asleep. Prince Heir, please go to sleep early by yourself to keep your body healthy. Sebastian was stunned, his face looking aggrieved as if someone had snatched a delicious morsel right from his mouth, mumbling, "In this house, am I the master or are Winnie's 2 little rabbits the masters? Oh heavens!" I winked mischievously, standing up and gliding away like a breeze, leaving him standing there complaining to heaven and earth in the empty room. It seems that even if I am a famous fox of the capital, before the warmth of family, I am still willing to be the gentlest sister in the world. Please, Prince Heir, go to sleep early obediently by yourself. I threw back a sharp sentence and intended to walk away, but Sebastian would not let it go so easily. He stood up huffily, his face full of dissatisfaction, grumbling complaints. Lucas Lee, that stinking brat, took his wife to travel the mountains and rivers again, didn't he? Indeed, since childhood I saw that he had no sense of propriety. Just wait, tomorrow I must definitely go to Princess Yuangxin's manor to tattle to his 2 older brothers. Sebastian spoke with increasing vigor, punching his palm loudly. What kind of brother-in-law is he, all day long only knowing how to take his wife to eat and play all over the world, and then throwing his daughters over here for my wife to look after, truly not regarding this Prince Heir as anything. I looked at the aggrieved appearance of the famous god of war of the capital, laughing until I could not stand steady, having to lean my whole body on his shoulder, shaking. One cannot entirely blame the brother-in-law. You know Winnie's temperament, she only needs to act spoiled and whine a few sentences and Lucas immediately loses his soul. If she wanted to pick stars from the sky, he would not dare shake his head. Tell me, isn't that couple truly strange? They are adults yet act like 2 children who have not grown up. Sebastian snorted coldly, wrapping his arm around my shoulder, his tone still not fully rid of sulking. What is strange about it? That is called ignorance enjoying peace. It is only hard on my wife, who has to worry about the major matter of salt tax for the court, and also has to be a reluctant wet nurse for the Zhang family's little rabbits. I shook my head with a wry smile while adjusting my clothes. I could not blame them either. Winnie insists that as long as she lets her daughters follow me, they will immediately inherit this sharp wisdom of mine. Hearing this, Sebastian was also poked into laughing out loud. He crossed his arms over his chest, his face full of thought. My wife, hearing you say that, I suddenly realized that the couple also has their logic. You look at our 2 children, each one is innocent and simple without a bit of scheming. On the contrary, that young lady of the Li family, from her way of speaking to her methods of action, looking back and forth, one sees the looming shadow of your little fox self. Hey, could it be that when these 2 were born back then, they were carried to the wrong parents? Hearing this, I did not know whether to laugh or cry, reaching out to knock lightly on his forehead. Stop talking nonsense. Our daughter is a whole year older than Winnie's daughter. How could they be mistaken? Sebastian was scolded but still thick-faced, immediately using the trick of both hitting and rubbing, hugging me tight and acting spoiled. In short, I do not care. Tonight I will order the butler to find a really good storyteller to coax the 2 children to sleep. As for you, you are only allowed to stay by my side. Without you beside me, I toss and turn, unable to close my eyes. If you do not agree, I will immediately go to the Marquis' manor to complain to my parents-in-law. Not only your family, I will also drag my face all the way to the Li family's house to accuse that couple of the crime of abandoning their children in the middle of the market. I laughed until my stomach hurt, looking at the majestic Prince Hair now turning into the most childish person in the house. In the end, I had no choice but to compromise and stay to coax this overgrown child first. Under the pure moonlight, my laughter echoed throughout the backyard. Although life has thousands of calculations, although human hearts can be as fickle as lime, as long as behind this manor door there are still Sebastian's warm nagging words, still Winnie's innocent laughter, then I, this little fox, am willing to use my entire life to preserve that precious ignorance. At the same time, at a famous restaurant in the suburbs, Lucas suddenly sneezed loudly, rubbing his nose. Winnie was engrossed in gnawing on a chicken leg and hurriedly took a handkerchief, solicitously handing it to her husband. What is wrong? Is the night wind too cold? Or have you caught a cold? Lucas shook his head, his face deadpan. It is nothing, surely someone is secretly cursing me behind my back. Hearing that, Winnie immediately nodded in agreement, her mouth still stained with a bit of grease. It must be second brother-in-law. That guy is both petty and jealous. Surely he is envying us because we get to go out and play. Lucas chuckled, not bothering to mind his wife's rambling, and picked another delicious piece to put into her bowl. Under the vast starry sky, everyone had found their own piece of peace. The smart have the joy of the smart, the innocent have the happiness of the innocent. This human world is actually inherently very gentle. Lucas sniffed his nose, giggling with a carefree look. Oh well, whoever wants to scold can just scold. I listen with the left ear and it goes out the right, not losing a piece of flesh. Look there, Winnie, quick look at the stall ahead, isn't it steaming hot? That is the pear blossom cake you have always dreamed of. Winnie's eyes immediately lit up like two bright stars, and even the handkerchief was conveniently stuffed into her husband's pocket. Lucas cheered excitedly. Didn't you just complain about craving it yesterday? Hurry up and follow me. Let me buy it for you to eat until you are tired of it. So, amidst the bustling city streets full of lights, that couple, the most gluttonous and playful in the capital, ran hand in hand enthusiastically towards the pastry stall. Their laughter and chatter dissolved into the wind, strangely peaceful and brilliant. It is true that resentment should be left for the brother-in-law to bear, while this delicious happiness must definitely belong to oneself. True kinship transcends biology. It is forged through unwavering protection and unconditional acceptance. The story reveals that a family thrives when diverse natures coexist in harmony rather than competition. Eleanor's calculating mind served as a necessary shield, preserving the precious innocence of Winnie and their parents. It teaches us that love is not about changing one another, but about using our unique strengths to cover each other's weaknesses. The world needs both the sharp protector and the gentle soul. One ensures survival, while the other reminds us why life is beautiful. Happiness is found where the fox guards the rabbit's peace. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like,